The biggest looting update is out in Clash of Clans, and this video right here will be your end-all be-all guide for farming more effectively and efficiently with the new changes regardless of your town hall level. And I'm going to be discussing literally everything in this video, from the maximum amount of resources that you can get per town hall, how to get those resources, as well as how to protect your loot, what league you should be farming in, and whether or not you should be supercharging your buildings, and much more. Let's first break down how looting is calculated and why this update is so big. Usually collectors would give you 50% of whatever is inside of them, and dark elixir drills will give you 75%, which is why we were so excited with full collectors in the past. The treasury only gives 3% of its resources, so it's not much there, and the town hall will give you 10% of the resources that are inside of it. However, these storages work differently because they have a percentage based on your town hall level and they have a cap. In this update, not only did the capped amount of resources change, but also the percentage, making it a lot easier to reach that cap. And this also includes the dark elixir storage, by the way. So with all these new numbers and percentages, I calculated the maximum amount of resources that you can get for each town hall. And this table right here shows the maximum amount of resources that you can get for every single town hall level. And guys, this chart is crazy. I mean, if you just look at some of these numbers, it's wild. At town hall 16, that is supercharged, you can get to 3.5 million golden elixir each. And we're going to talk about supercharged a little bit later in the video. Now, I did this with the dark elixir as well, and here is the chart for that. You can see that the numbers are a lot higher, and you can see at town hall 16 the maximum amount you can get is 23,020. And guys, honestly, this is a much needed change in my opinion. So clearly we now have the chance to get insane amounts of loot across the board, but how do you actually get that loot? Well, this is where things get a little interesting, because everything that we currently know about loot dynamics has completely changed. Before, the best bases you could hit were just from the dead bases, because the resource collectors gave you over 1 million loot on their own. But now the storages have even more loot potential than the resource collectors, so active players are actually not bad players to hit, especially if they're farming for upgrades. This is why the day cycle is really important now. The ideal target is someone who has been farming for a really expensive upgrade, but at the same time they haven't checked their account for a long time, probably because they were sleeping. Therefore, it's really beneficial to attack higher level players, especially town hall 16s, because they're gonna need to have a lot of loot for their upgrades anyways. And we're gonna talk specifically about the amount of resources a player has to have in their storages for us to get the most amount of loot in a later portion of the video. But first, we need to address the elephant in the room. If attacking higher level town hall players is potentially better, then what league should you be in? Now, this is where the genius of the update really shines. Before, there was always a hard decision to be made between whether you should push to higher leagues for more ores or you should stay in lower leagues for more resources. But now you could do literally both, and higher level town hall players are going to get punished for dipping down in leagues because they're going to be giving up on potential loot that they could be getting at higher leagues. That being said, attacking max level town hall 16s as a town hall 13 will probably not get you the maximum amount of loot anyways, because your army is probably going to get decimated. So the best league for you is the one that allows you to attack your own town hall level as well as the town hall level above you, and you can still get all of the resources, the storages, and of course the town hall, and this is going to help your ores a lot too. It's also really important that higher level town hall players will also get to higher leagues a lot faster because of this loot penalty right here. And this loot penalty is more significant because it is a percentage, and the total amount of loot has increased quite a bit. But for every coin there are two sides, for every blade there are two edges, and for every attack that gets a lot of loot is potentially a defender that loses a lot of resources. So how do you properly defend your base and keep all of your resources? First of all, a reminder that 50% of whatever is in the collectors is automatically up for grabs. In the past, I would recommend upgrading your collectors to 2 or 3 levels off max and then stop upgrading them because you're gonna get diminishing returns. But now I'm gonna change my recommendations. Don't upgrade them at all. This is because you get meager amounts of gold and elixir from your collectors anyway. Even at the maximum level, you'll only get 1.1 million gold and elixir a day, and you can literally just make that in an attack within 2 minutes. Collector level also doesn't affect the amount of resource storages that you have, so it's not gonna cause problems there. And not to mention that it also takes up valuable builder time. The only thing that leveling up collectors does is makes more resources available for other people to loot from you, so I wouldn't recommend upgrading them at all. The only possible exception to this is the dark elixir drill, because dark elixir is so important and very hard to come by, but to be honest, you're only gonna make 25,000 total in a day from all 3 of your dark elixir drills at max level, so I'll let you decide whether or not that's worth it versus the new loot numbers. Beyond that, you need to understand that storages are a key portion of how people are going to try and loot you now, especially if you're at a higher town hall level. But how much resources do you actually need to have in the bank for attackers to get the maximum resources that they can get from you? This table right here summarizes all of that. As you guys can see, you only need 13.5 million gold or elixir at Town Hall 16 to allow your opponent to steal 1.6 million of each. And I don't know if there's a single upgrade at Town Hall 16 that doesn't cost more than that already. Therefore, if you have more resources than the number that is on the right side right now, then you need to either spend it, use a training potion, or ensure that you have shield so that you can protect your resources. Furthermore, crow bases are going to be extremely popular for defending your resources. Now, crow bases are a really old concept, but it's basically a base that you have all of the storages and everything in the center. It's something that we used to use a long time ago, but they're gonna start becoming relevant now. And a classic farming base is actually going to be pretty good for you now because you're gonna be able to protect a lot of your resources, so I would actually recommend going ahead and getting one of those. Now, at this point, you guys are probably thinking, BD, you said don't upgrade your collectors. Does that include Supercharge? And unfortunately, it does. Supercharge will only allow you to get a mild increase in the amount of resources that you get from your collectors, but on the other hand, it'll give your attackers a lot more loot to take from you, so I wouldn't recommend Supercharge on your collectors. And for the sake of this video and its scope, I'm not going to talk at length about Supercharge, but I really wouldn't recommend it for a lot of players and a lot of my Town Hall 16s, simply because it is a temporary upgrade. I would make it a lot low priority. That being said, the Supercharge animations are phenomenal. I mean, they are amazing, and I would love to see these types of animations in permanent content in the future. Just a note as well, this is a perfect way for them to go ahead and test out stats of buildings and things like that for the next Town Hall without actually committing to them, so hats off to whoever came up with this clever idea. Finally, the last thing to discuss is how the new magic snacks can affect your farming, and as well as how you can use the relevant ones to make your farming really efficient. And the relevant ones include the Clan Castle Cake and the Training Treat. Sure, the Mighty Morsel and the Power Pancakes could help, but I think they're better suited for war. The Clan Castle Cake is really good to get reinforcements, especially if you're pushing at the same time. But the Training Treat is the thing you will probably use the most while you're farming, and there are some caveats to it. Now remember that the Training Treat works for 20 minutes or 10 attacks, but most attacks in Clash of Clans take at least 3 minutes. So if you use this by the time value of 20 minutes, you actually wouldn't be getting the greatest value, especially when you're spending all that time looking for those juicy bases. My recommendation is to train a spam army like the Yetis or the E-Drags, and then to just drop them and then quit the game. Do that for the first 5 or 6 attacks. That way you can get a good army and like good farming for the last few attacks, and you get maximum value out of all 10 of your attacks. Just whatever you do, do not use the training potion with the Training Treat. I don't think that's gonna work too well. Now I'll be honest with you, this update has got me really excited. Not only is there really cool scenery stuff and all these other things, but the loot changes actually mean a lot to me because I don't have a lot of time to play, so this actually helps me quite a bit. But loot doesn't do you any good if you don't know where to spend it and when. That's why you need to check out this playlist right here, where I have a detailed and updated upgrade guide for every single town hall in Clash of Clans.